All right, well, I'm here with Matt from Longstocking Brewing. How you going?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good. We're about to embark on a brew day.
So we're brewing the Sapphire Coast Pale Ale, which is a mid-strength pale ale. It's at 3%, and it's got a nice full body, a lot of flavour for a mid-strength, but it's very popular.
Yep. So let's talk us through it. What's the very first step in the brew day?
Well, we've got some. This is the first raw material that goes into the beer, which is malted barley.
Yep.
And right now it's in its just raw form, so it's the grains haven't been crushed or anything yet. So we're running it through a mill, which just cracks the husk of the grain and breaks it up a bit more. So when we put it in the mash tun, the water can get in there and start converting the starches to sugars a bit easier.
Yep.
Yeah. So
and what's malt is it? What particular malt are you putting in there at the moment?
So this recipe is about 85% pale ale malt.
Yep.
So just a base malt that gives it a nice kind of pale colour.
Yep.
And then we've got a little bit of wheat in there to help the beer with foam stability, and
yep.
then also a bit of crystal malt and a bit of caramels. Sure.
Nice. All right. Well, let's turn it on and let's see how we go.
Cool.
Alright, so this is when the malt's gone through the machine. We end up with, it's broken down a lot more, isn't it?
Yeah.
All the husks sort of removed and...
Yeah, so we want to mill it to a certain point. We don't want to crush it too fine, otherwise it'll turn into a flour and we'll have all sorts of problems in the mash tun.
Yeah.
So we're just filling up the mash tun with hot liquor now, which is just basically the hot water that we've treated with salts, ready for the mashing process. And most beers generally will mash in at around, we want the mash temperature to be about 67 degrees. And that's kind of a good midpoint where you get conversion of all the different sugars in the grain.
Okay.
So for this particular brew, we've got 250 litres of grain going into make probably 1,150 litres of beer, and we've got about 750 litres in our mash tun. You can see in here I've got the rakes going, which basically help us stir in the mash and mix everything in.
That's starting to add all the grain. We got bags of it there and more bags of it there. Highly sophisticated process. Basically lift the bag up and pour it in. All right, so most of the malt's gone in.
Yeah, so when we're mashing in, we just want to make sure that there's no, that basically the grain gets mixed in really well. So there's no dough balls or anything where there's no water. So just kind of stop every so often to make sure it's all mixing in well. The grains have gone in now. So basically we'll let that, the conversion start to happen there with all the starches in the grains. They'll get converted into sugars. So we'll just leave that mixing. We'll just monitor the temperature and the gravity, how much sugar we're achieving. And then in about an hour, we'll start the transfer into the kettle.
Okay.
So I'm just going to start the wort, which is what we call the sugary liquid now that we've got from the grain. I'm going to start recirculating it back over itself. So I'm just taking a sample now to check how the conversion's going. So this is a refractometer that shows the density of the wort now, so how much sugar's in there basically. And it's converting really well. We were just talking about how you measure the ABV, the alcohol of the beer, ABV. So when we're measuring the gravity, we'll measure that at the start of the ferment when we put the yeast in, and we measure again throughout the ferment, and then take the end gravity. And there's a calculation which you can find out the alcohol, or you can use an app like I do. So basically, you enter the starting gravity, the final gravity, and it'll tell you the percentage. So I've been mashing for about an hour now. We've got a really good conversion of all the starches in the grains to sugar. And we've got a relatively clear wort now recirculating. So the next step now is to transfer it all into the kettle. and then we'll bring it to the boil and add the hops. So you can see now basically we're transferring all of that good sugary liquid called wort from the mash tun into the kettle.
What are you up to there?
So I've just started sparging, so we're adding some more hot water to the mash tun, basically to rinse out the rest of the sugars from the grains, make sure that we're extracting all of that good sugary liquid. So the idea of this sparge water is that it gets spread over the top of the grains and rinses everything through. So we're just almost at the end of transfer now, transferring all of our wort from the kettle into the mash tun into the kettle, and I'm bringing that up to boil now. So once that gets up to temperature, then we can start adding some hops throughout that process in order to add bitterness and flavour and aroma.
So mash tun, pretty much no wort left in that. It's all just spent grain, and we're going to pull it out at the bottom in a minute.
So we've got all the wort in the kettle now. It's coming up to the boil. So we get all this spent grain out that we use to make the beer, and that goes to the sheep and the cattle. So it's a really good food or feed for them. So yeah. This is our first hop addition into the kettle. So the hops basically give the beer the bitterness, the flavour and the aroma. That's the hop pellets there.
And what hop is it?
In this beer we use Galaxy and Mosaic.
Okay. So this is my contribution to the whole beer. I'm going to add some hops. We've got was about 300-400 grams of Galaxy and 400 grams of Mosaic. I'm going to pop those in, and we're in a pretty full brew. Smelling good.
So it's the end of the boil. We've added the whirlpool hops, and now it's time to transfer the beer into the fermenter. So we'll transfer it through a heat exchanger, cool it right down to the temperature that we can pitch the yeast in. Yeah. So the beer's coming out of the kettle at around about 90-95 degrees, and this heat exchanger here will chill it down as it's running through to about 12 to 15 degrees so that we can pitch the yeast. So I'm just pitching the yeast. We're dry pitching some US-05, so it's an American ale strain. And once we've pitched this, we'll lock down the fermenter and let it do its thing for a week. Once the fermentation's done, then we'll chill it down, gas it, and it'll be ready to go.
Okay, so we're at the end of the day here now. We've had a pretty reasonable day. We started about 8:30 this morning. It's about 2:30 now. We've finished most of the day. So we started over here with the mash.
Yeah, so all the grains went in.
Yep.
Turned it into wort.
Yep.
Boiled it, added some hops, and
put it in the boil.
yeah.
And then over in the background, we've just transferred it to the fermenter, and it's going to stay there. How long is that going to be there for?
Probably 10 days.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we'll chill it down, carbonate it, and it'll go into package.
Yep. So that's a bit of a day in the life of a brewer, especially here at Longstocking, and hopefully it's been a good introduction to you about the ingredients and what goes into making a beer, and we'll be enjoying one of them soon. So
I think it's time. Yeah.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. So at the end of a long day. Well, not too long. But there's nothing better than sitting down and enjoying a beer. So this is the beer that we've been brewing, or
one we prepared earlier.
Classic line. But yeah, so it's a pale ale, and it's 3.5%, and it looks pretty good in the glass. But there's only one way to find out.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. It's easy drinking it.
It is, yeah.
So, I mean, you've been here for a little while now and settling in.
Yeah. Yep. Loving it. This is one of the most recent beers that I've kind of worked on, just because we really felt it's something to have a mid-strength, something a bit lower alcohol, so people can have a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't want to compromise on flavour. And I think I'm really happy with this particular pale ale. It tastes like a full strength pale ale to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a nice hop character.
And it's got body too, you know, it's not a thin watery beer. It's got a nice head on it that sort of hangs around as well, so it's got good mouthfeel. But overall, like, I mean, generally Longstocking beers are fairly drinkable, aren't they? And they're sort of in that sort of 5-ish% range. Yeah. Nothing too big or too bold. Or,
yeah, we generally kind of like people to be able to enjoy a few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice. And this beer, since coming on a few months ago, the Sapphire Coast ale, it's probably been one of our most popular beers. So, yeah.
Especially coming into summer now, and you know, it's going to be something that people can, you know, come in, have a couple, and don't have to worry about driving. Yeah. So, what's the future for Longstocking? And I know you've got a couple of ideas about playing around with some other types of beers. Yeah, well, we'll just keep putting out our core range. That's really popular. It's starting to, the locals are really getting around the core range, which is good. And then just keep releasing seasonal beers and trying new things and kind of keeping it interesting. So nice. Well, thanks for having me today. It's been enjoyable. Certainly learned a lot, and hopefully the people that are watching the video after will as well.
Awesome.
So if you're ever in the area, drop down and see the guys here at Longstocking and at Pambilla, and we're obviously at the bottom of the South Coast Ale Trail. So it starts way up at the top of Wollongong and comes all the way down here to the Pambilla, which is near the border of Victoria and near Eden. So cheers to good beers.
Cheers. Come say good day.
Yeah, cheers.
Awesome.